Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is so good. And before we jump in, I have some exciting news to share. If you've ever wondered where you're blocking money, this is for you. I've created a free quiz to diagnose your money wounds so you can heal them and unblock yourself to receive more money. Just go to moneywoundsquiz.com and answer 6 quick questions to get your insanely accurate and potent results. And if you're loving my vibe and want to work one-on-one to call in more feminine energy wealth, I would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a DM on social media or go to emilywilcox.com to learn more. Hello and welcome back to the M Makes Money Show. I am so excited to share today's episode with you. This is probably one of the most meaningful podcast episodes I've recorded because it was such a full circle moment for me to be interviewing one of my past mentors who, by the way, has a super successful podcast. And at the time that I worked with her, this podcast didn't exist. I didn't have a coaching business, didn't think I ever wanted one. And it's so wild to sit down with her and just interview her for my show, but also just reflect on the time that we worked together and just how beautiful these full circle moments are. So I cannot wait to introduce today's guest, but I just also want to share a little bit of what's on top for me. So I also today did 2 one-on-one calls with clients that are inside of Emerge, which is my pop-up mastermind right now through the rest of the year. By the time you listen to this, the container will be closed, but if you're not following me on social media, I highly recommend it because that's where you get the pulse of what's happening in the moment. You can also join my email list, and I try to let you know what's going on there as well. I've got some beautiful retreat offerings. I've got one spot left in the Rise Retreat, which is happening in Palm Springs in October, and it's a wealth activation retreat. I've got so many incredible things planned so that all the women that are there will be stepping into and meeting themselves at this next level version of the wealthy woman that lives inside of them. So it's going to be really exciting. I know this last spot is going to go. So if you know that it's for you, definitely shoot me a DM right away to claim it. The next retreat will be in spring of 2023. So if you know you want to go on a retreat, but fall is not the right time for you, also send me a DM and I can put you on a wait list so you can be the first to get details about that spring retreat. If you couldn't tell, I'm loving in-person client experiences. And one of my favorite things to do are luxury VIP days. I did one with one of my clients recently at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Los Angeles. And it was just such a special day. And she had so many aha moments and things that we never could have planned for, but that really helped connect the dots on just this wealthy version of herself and the next moves to make in her business and her life to really be building her fempire and doing it in very balanced masculine, feminine energy. So I've been wanting to explore the Ritz-Carlton in Marina del Rey and also the one that's in Laguna Beach. So if you've been craving an in-person experience and you want a beautiful mix of spa and strategy, the woo-woo and the business coaching, let me plan a day for you. The investment is $5,555, and that includes a night of luxury accommodation. It includes all of our meals and experiences while we're together, and the days are truly transformative. So again, send me a DM if that's something that you're interested in. And without further ado, I want to introduce my guest for today, Amber Lilyestrom. Amber, as I mentioned, is not only a mentor of mine, but she's an incredible author, poet, speaker, teacher, coach, human being, mama. She has been in the coaching game, I think 8 years at this point. She's got 2 beautiful children. And one of the reasons that I was drawn to working with her was how balanced she was in her motherhood and in her business. And so it was clear that she was building a business and making a lot of money, but doing it in a way that didn't sacrifice her mental health, her time freedom, and her family, which, was number one. So she is an absolutely incredible person. And we go so deep together on just what it looks like to honor your core values and to put yourself in spaces where that is honored as well. And what it looks like to come home in your body and honor your inner authority, and so many juicy topics. So without further ado, let's dive in. Amber, welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, my dear.
Yeah, it feels like such a wild moment for me if I'm just observing myself, because you were my coach. We worked together for probably about a year and a half. And at that time, you had the podcast and the big social media following and like all of these different things, which I actually never thought pertained to me or that I wanted or any of that. And now here I am interviewing you on my podcast. And it's just one of those like, haha, universe moments where
Yes.
it all comes full circle in ways that we could never imagine.
I mean, it's so cool, right, that we magnetize mentors and teachers on our journeys that are inhabiting some of the things that maybe we don't even recognize. It's like subconsciously there's a desire there. And so then we get to be in community with them and we get to sort of normalize it and then create our version, of what it is that we want to express and what our signature in the world is meant to be. So I love it so much. I've loved obviously getting to support you and then watching the trajectory and watching the unfolding and watching you just step into this work. It's been so beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. And it really speaks to, I think, how mentorship is such a lifelong thing and the lessons just exist so far beyond the bounds of the container.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, because it's like nice for me as a client, but then also as a coach and a mentor, it's a helpful reminder too that like, oh, the transformation really extends so much further beyond this space and in ways that we just can't even fathom in this moment.
It's so true. I mean, can you think back to any point of a learning opportunity, even like back in college or in your first job, or, where you were being guided to learn something and you maybe got it kind of conceptually, but you didn't understand it from an integration standpoint? And I think that's how it goes with our coaches and our mentors. And when we're part of masterminds and things like this, it's like, we do get an enormous amount of value, but it's the gift that keeps on giving, because it in perpetuity, right? It gets to continue to open and blossom and support us. And that's why, supporting yourself through investing in mentorship, coaching, events, like going places where you can learn and have relational support opportunities. I just, it's the gift that keeps on giving forever. Truly, it is this amazing choice, because you are the asset and you will never depreciate. And that is the coolest thing ever.
It really is. So I feel like in some respects, you're like an OG in the coaching industry. And I'm just so curious, from your sort of zoomed out perspective, what you see for this industry, any ways that you've seen it change, any trends that you predict are coming up?
So I've been doing this work for 8.5 years in terms of being a coach, but certainly was plugged in before I launched my business and learning and connecting and taking notes and testing my little wet wings out. But I think that what has just been really cool is just witnessing everybody in their own evolution, and so it's like seeing clients that I've had the opportunity to support and serve on their journeys, like really stepping into their dharma, right? Stepping into what they're meant to do on their path and spreading their wet wings to the point where they're really blossoming and they're really flying and they're really serving. And, this about me. I'm a former Division I athlete, but in the context of this coaching world, I just don't believe in competition at all. I just don't think it's a thing. When I get it on a questionnaire, I write NA, like not applicable, not interested in that conversation, not helpful. There's enough room for all of us. There are so many people on this planet. And I think there's this wave of evolution happening where consciousness is the new edge, and people stepping into new realms of consciousness and understanding of themselves and doing their deep healing work and freeing themselves. So it's like, it's just amazing to see the coaching industry continuing to grow and spread out in a bigger way. And then also, there are lots of folks who maybe were OGs who are doing different things. They're scaling in different ways. They're creating, technology experiences to just diversify how they're helping and what they're doing. And I think that's what I love to watch, is the innovation and the ways that we're sharing ideas and connecting with each other. It's actually a good example. Ben, my husband Ben, just got home literally like right now from this event called Hell on the Hill, which is put on by All Day Running Company, which is founded by Jesse Itzler,
Okay.
Sarah Blakely's husband. Yeah. And it was just this amazing experience. It was right in our backyard here in New England. And Ben just did this half marathon on this like hellacious hill, literally. But it was this community of all these different types of people who wanted to go push themselves. But the way Jesse organized it was, you know, doing the cold plunging and the saunas and having those on site, and then having Olympians and you know, speakers and elite athletes and trainers coming and doing personal development talks for the people there. It was an overnight event. And you know, I can just tell like Ben has just gone through this huge shift. And I said to him, like, so what's coming up for you on the other side of this, besides like your legs being almost dead and you wondering how you're going to be able to walk, you know, for the next couple of days. And he's like, you know, I don't know. But I can tell something huge opened. He's like, something big is here. And in his way, he's like, I really want to process. I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm excited to see what comes through for you. And so I think that's an example of an innovation, right? It's like taking a race experience and then creating personal development and growth and coaching opportunities in the container of that being together. And I also think like being connected to the other side of the pandemic, everything, we've all been turned inside out, you know, and so we're all in this place of like, okay, there's more discernment. I think there's a lot more clarity about what's right for us and what's not. I do feel people kind of like really coming out again, like out of the woodwork and being bold, but I feel like they're making choices from a place with a lot more, as I said, discernment before they're going to make the investment or like get on the plane or come into the room. And that's because the motivation is coming from a different place. Whereas it used to be coming from this place of like, I need to keep up, FOMO, let me, you know, really truly scarcity energy.
Yeah.
Let me like make sure I keep up with what the Kardashians, the Joneses, like inserted here.
Yeah.
And I see now, at least with the people that I'm serving, when there's a decision to enroll in a program, to take that, it's like there's a much deeper beat drop happening, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think the transformations here are so much richer, and it's really cool to see. And I just think this really, there are no limits on what we can create as coaches and teachers and mentors and innovators in this season to really serve people from the deepest part of ourselves.
Yes. Like tapping into new levels of creativity and being like, oh, I love horses and I love coaching and I love this. Like, how do I put together an event where it all gets to exist together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so beautiful. And I love what you said about like the shifts from the pandemic. I'm in a mastermind, and one of my mastermind sisters has really been talking about this word sufficiency. And my first experience with that word felt a little bit like lack. Like, you know, do we really just want it to be sufficient? But she was like, no, like the true richness of sufficiency and like just how held and supported we are in so many ways. And as I've let myself play with that word, it really does resonate that I feel so much sufficiency in my life that if I am going to say yes to a retreat or a new coaching experience or whatever, it really is from a place of desire, not from a place of, I need this thing because I'm insufficient.
Yes, right.
Or I'm lacking. It's like, oh, from this place of sufficiency, it's actually like creates this beautiful foundation so that I can just lean more into desire.
Yeah, totally. I love that expression. And I think I see like a cork just rising with the level of the water, right? And just rising up, because you can't hold the cork down for long. It's always going to come back up, and that's us. And so I love like thinking of it from that visual standpoint of like, there's enough in the jar, right? There's enough, and there's just more to come. And if we move from that place of sufficiency, you know, I was really thinking about that in the context of, you know, income, and I'm sure we'll probably get to talking about that topic just sort of surface globally. But from my perspective, I think it's also given me the opportunity to look at like what is sufficient, what is enough, what is necessary when we think about I get the visual of like the scales and the balancing for how I want to do life and how I want to operate and function in this business that is constructed with the model like the one I have
Yeah.
in this moment, right? And also balancing out, my motherhood and my health and my marriage and the needs that I have for spaciousness with the model of the business that I have. And so it's like, really truly, I think our work gets to be about figuring out what that equation looks like and then helping people develop the skill of making money in their
Yeah.
businesses and understanding that it is actually a skill. Learning how to make money is something we can help teach people how to do. And it kind
Yeah.
of takes, certainly there's like energetics and there's all this like mystical magical stuff that can go into it, but at the end of the day it's also like, as business people we have to learn the basics and the mechanics of how to do those things.
Yeah.
And then, getting to that place, I've been talking a lot about layer cakes lately with my clients of like, what's on the menu? Like, what are the layers? How do you create this experience for people to come in and just eat what they want to eat and be part of your containers in a way that really feels right sized for where they are, that you also have the sufficiency, the capacity to actually hold. And as I speak about this, I can see you smiling. It just feels so abundant. It
Yeah.
feels so good to just create from this place and then to make choices around, oh, and see, there is a direct correlation to this approach and this energetic and this commitment and the income that I'm allowing myself to receive. And these things
Yeah.
are just, it is quite simple when you really talk about it from this vantage point.
100%. And going back to this concept of sufficiency, because it's something that I've really seen you embody, which is like, what feels good to me and my family.
Yeah.
And sure, I could throw all of my energy into doubling my business.
Yes.
And at what cost? Like, can I be
Yes.
the mom that I want to be while doubling my business? And just allowing the sufficiency to give you the freedom of cultivating and crafting the life that you want.
Right.
And then as you talk about that in terms of an offer suite and what's on the menu, it's like, it's fine for the restaurant to charge a lot for the bottle of wine that comes from the year when the grapes were amazing, but they also weren't as plentiful. And
Right.
so like the restaurant only has 4 bottles. Like just naturally the
That's right.
price is going to be higher for that.
Yeah.
Not because there's FOMO, not because there's this fake scarcity of like, we only have 4 bottles, so you got to get it at this price.
Yes.
But like, if I look at my life and it feels like 4 one-on-one clients is what fits perfectly on the menu,
Right.
then there's a price for that. And there's a different price if you want to be in a group program or you want to buy
Right.
something that's self-paced. And when it is energetically coming from this really beautifully aligned place, I think people can feel that.
Totally.
They can really feel the authenticity in the pricing and in the offer and the way that it fits your menu.
Totally. Yeah. Nailed it. Nailed it. That's it. And I think that I see this a lot with my clients. They have learned a lot of tactics and strategies that have come from scarcity, that really have come from the root of scarcity and from just a different motivation, essentially, right? Like I always think about like, okay, it's amazing that you're making millions of dollars. That's wonderful. But like, can you connect the dots on why that's important to you? And why? Like, let's just talk about why, not from that there's anything wrong with it, because at the end of the day it's really pretty neutral.
Yeah.
It's like money is just a tool. It really is. It's just like a part. It's one of the things that's required in this human existence. And so it's like, okay, great. Same with food. I could eat the same thing every day for the rest of my life. I could eat, gourmet things for the rest of my life. I could just eat McDonald's for the rest of my life, right? It's like we get to express in that way. And money is the same thing. It's just a tool that helps us to function in this existence that we are living in. And so I think there's a great unlearning that is happening. I'm noticing it a lot with women. I'm noticing it in this, I have some interesting perspectives on some of these things. There is like this divine feminine thing that to me, I'm sometimes like, is that divine feminine or is it just bro marketing, that looks just like sexy and pretty? Like, are they actually the same thing? And can we just talk about it? It's like, and where does the motivation come from? Because you can smell scarcity from a million miles away. With what you said, like the false deadlines, the sort of like pressury push stuff. And to me, that goes back to like the kind of unsafe culture that women have been trying to protect themselves from for lifetimes. So it's like we really have to be discerning. And the best exercise we can do is really look at ourselves, hello, and say, why do I want this?
Yeah.
But so many women come in and say, I want to make $1 million, or I want to have, whatever number figure months. And it's always like, great, awesome, cool. We can make a plan for that. We can work on that. But just, we need to talk about why. Like, why does that matter to you? And it's not to poke holes in it or to make it wrong, but like, let's supercharge it. So we can really like believe in the foundation of why this matters to you. So that's a topic I could go on and on and on about. But I just think that's the introspection that needs to happen, because the reality is, and this from your own experience, and I know this from my own experience, we didn't get to this money conversation like totally clean and supported energetically. No. And it's like not a healthy topic for most of us coming into entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. And, I'm nodding my head as you're talking about, the bro marketing and the scarcity tactics, because better than anyone, I had this funny experience of being in your mastermind at the same time that I was in a bro marketing mastermind. Yeah. And like, I really tried to straddle those two worlds for a while and try to figure out like whatever my own reconciliation was. And I've come to it now, at least I think I have. Often we think like we check the box and it's done and then it comes back around. But it was like, I was so drawn to you as a coach because I was like, oh, like the lifestyle, like it was, you really were showing how motherhood was such an important piece and the business was an important piece, and how they really both got a lot of airtime. And it just felt like, oh, I want that. Yeah. And then there was also a piece of me that really was a match for someone else's 10-step framework on how to do it. And this is the way. And whether it feels good or not, you just follow steps 1 through 10 in order to get there. And so part of me, gets frustrated and wants to like demonize that industry, but really it's the part of me that like gets to forgive myself and everybody else, because like I was a match for that.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like, again, everything can have neutrality in it. I mean, that's really, to me, one of the easiest places to go, yet it was not and hasn't been easy, right? It's like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not being judgmental, because I think that's a place where we can judge ourselves for being judgmental and we get to this certain point of, but it's like, but maybe you're actually just being discerning. And in this season, you're looking at it and saying, I see how that works there, and that doesn't resonate for me. And that doesn't line up with my values of what it is I want to create. And I realized like I was working with all these male mentors. Again, no problem with men. I love men, right? Of course.
Yeah.
But I was noticing like, oh, the core values, even though we have very similar core values, the way we activate them is extremely different.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like I always come out at the end of the conversation feeling like I'm doing it wrong, because I can't subscribe to their process and their pathway of doing these things, because at the end of I'm a mother. And so my children, my family is always going to be the number one thing. And the demands of a mother, if you haven't done that, with all due respect, if you haven't operated in a role of being a primary guardian for another being, for a child, whether you birth them or not, you can't understand. You just can't. You haven't had the experience. And so that, Ben is right now picking Ani up from school. Alex was still napping. We have a 5.5-month-old. We have a 9-year-old. And Ben, he said to me, yeah, he's like, Alex, like, I'm like, it's like tightrope. He could continue to sleep, but I'm like, I won't be able to go down to him right now and while I'm in my interview. And he's like, right. And he's like, I would never leave him like that, A, and then also B, like the pressure you would feel. And I
Yeah.
can't hear my child crying when I'm trying. It's primal. And so I think that goes so deep. And I love that. I love that we have that. It's such a privilege. It's such a gift. It's such an honor to have motherhood because it just makes things so simple, even though they are incredibly complex.
Yeah.
And when it comes to my business, it is not number one, and it really never will be. And I also love my work, and it's important. It is an important part of my life. My children understand it's an important part of my life. I'm very supported.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, and I so appreciate that kind reflection and observation, I don't want to miss certain aspects of my children's lives. And so I'm not the nanny person right now. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm working less time, though I'm spreading it out intelligently. And Ben and I have a whole strategy and system with how we do it as a team. But I want to be there to go take that walk when he's awake
Yeah.
in the middle of the day. I want to be there for putting him down for the nap. I want to be there for pick up and drop off. And that's just how it's going to be. And
Yeah.
so then that impacts capacity, and it requires me to scale differently, and it requires me to design my business differently or not. But the reality is I get to decide.
Yeah.
And that's the magic right there.
Yes. And like the claiming of the power in that deciding.
Yeah.
And I think that can be the tricky part when we put ourselves in male dominated spaces,
Yeah.
is that that decision can be framed in a disempowering way, or like an excuse, or like almost a gaslighting type of experience, instead of like really anchoring into the power of that. Like, I choose family first, and I choose to build my business in a way that really allows me to give my family what they need and what I want to be
Right.
participating in.
Yeah. And I'll say also, it can happen in female spaces and places where the motherhood is not centered as a value.
Yes.
And I've had a lot of different seasons where I was really I'm masterminding with a bunch of people who don't have children, and I can't, like, it's okay. Again, no judgment. It's just
Yeah.
discernment of realizing, like, this doesn't make sense that I'm leaving this thing early to go make the dance recital because I'm not going to miss my kid's first dance recital. So I'll fly across the country for like a day and a half, and I'll leave early to go watch her and her tutu on the stage. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And, like, no replays, no redos. The video doesn't count. I'm going to be there. And then there are some times where it's like, you do make the decision that you're going to go to the thing, and right. But it's just, yeah, you guys, you understand what we're saying. And I just want to encourage, I think that one of my sort of patterns that I've struggled with over time, and of course most of my clients do because we are so similar in many ways, is the binary of the right and the wrong.
Yeah.
And getting into the place of really claiming and deciding and creating and designing what right is for me.
Yes.
And that's an easy one for us to get really hooked in. We're trained from day one to get stuck in that. But it feels so right, the way that everything is unfolding, and the work is so much fun, and supporting women the way that I get to, where I can just be myself, all the way, and even more, is just, it's the best. I love it so much.
Yeah. And it's so evident. So I want to pick up on the thread of money, and I'm curious if you can just share at a high level, like, sort of what the highs and lows of money have looked like during this entrepreneurial journey, and then where you've arrived at in terms of sufficiency and balancing, the business and the money with the lifestyle that you want.
Yeah, that's a great question. So growing up, I think that's the launching pad, if you will, right? For all of us. It's like that's where we got our idea of what money is, what wealth means, what it means about the people who have the wealth, right? So there's just been a lot of things for me to have to address and meet head on, and heal and forgive and release and overcome. And, shame's a big theme in there, really looking at that. And so I always knew from a young age that I was going to be financially wealthy, successful. I always knew that I would be someone who was going to make more money than I had experienced in my childhood, my family of origin. My parents never talked about money, but they any other way than it was stressful, and people who had it was like must be nice kind of
Yeah.
storylines. So that was really the identity that I saw when it came to people who had resource and who had nice things, and where it was like obvious that they were wealthy, right, in some way, shape, or form. There you could connect those dots. And as a kid, I would be at soccer practice and I'd notice, the parents who pulled up in the new Explorer, and I'd notice like what they were wearing and try to surmise what kind of job they had and what time they got there and how they interfaced with their kid. And I was like taking all of these notes, and it was always in relationship to like their career, their income. What I knew, Em, was I wanted to have a different reality for my family, and I didn't want my children to have to bear the burden of feeling that scarcity poverty mindset and feel the weight and anxiety of that. So as you can imagine, I did. And so when I became an entrepreneur, it was definitely, one of those triggers, and it has been that I've had to really examine and look at and watch the cyclicality of it, and watch the triggers. One huge trigger was taxes, right? The government, IRS. And even though every single time I always enlisted people, professionals to help me, all along, it was like one of the first things I did in my business, because I was like, I'm not having the experiences that I watched my parents have when it came to the IRS. I would still have like the full body, felt like blood draining from my body, going to the mailbox and having a letter from the IRS, not even knowing what was in it, but like that terrible feeling. And I can think of a couple instances where it was just like, felt like I was going to die, and I remember feeling that exact experience as a kid when I watched my mom come down the driveway with the mail and then walk in the house and be like, freaking out about something. So it's interesting, because I was like, how am I playing this pattern out? Like, how am I reliving this pattern? And I need to really look at this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were able to create like incredible manifestation. I mean, this house I'm sitting in right now, we bought our dream house here on the lake, and then we paid cash, which was over $300,000 to build this addition. And when I think about that, it was like there was such a charge on the vision and what it was that we were feeling called to create. And my business hadn't been in the place and space to manifest that, to create that, but I scaled and I created a different model, and I had different things happening, and we did it. But I will say, throughout the whole process, it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is so easy. It was like, like on fumes, like here's my $50,000 check, here's a $90,000 check, here's a 60. That it was like writing these checks over to the builder and like having heart palpitations, like in the in-betweens, and working with my mentor to really alchemize this old patterning, and really realizing like, you just wrote $100,000 check, like you can do it, you're doing it. But there was like a part of me that hadn't caught up with me yet.
Yeah.
So I think that I see it in my head like this. It's that like catching up to oneself when you have this whole timeline that you spent a lot more time in, that was the story of scarcity and not enoughness and insufficiency as a foundation and a way you relate to yourself. And then put a little cherry on the top of the identity of, if I'm now a wealthy person, and of course I cannot control anyone else's definition of what that means.
Yeah.
But they're going to have reactions to what I have, my things building. I mean, I couldn't really hide this, building a $300,000 addition on my already over $300,000 house. Like, that was a big move. And everybody on the pond is driving their boats around the next summer, coming back and seeing it for the first time. And I remember just feeling like all the projections and all the, and it was great. It was like, it was so gruesome, and it was so awesome, because I got to work on it. Yeah. And I got to look at it, and I got to identify what was happening inside of me. And so the normalization of all that has settled in. And it's not that I don't get excited about money anymore, but I understand it differently. And I see money now as a tool that helps me to accomplish the specific goals that I have for my life, for my family, for my business, beyond, for my philanthropy, like whatever it is. And the way I do it is I get on the wave, I get on the wave of the thing that I am wanting the money for, because there always is a thing that you want money for. The place where I found myself trip up, and I'm wondering if you can relate to this, or listeners can too, is when I would want to have some arbitrary amount of money in the account to make me feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, it never works for me because money can't keep me safe in the way
Right.
that I want to feel safe. And this is the thing that it really took me a long time to get to that. But the reality is, it just never would work.
Yeah.
Their money needed to have a purpose. It had to have an assignment. It had to have a heartbeat for what it was going for. And spontaneous manifestation, once I plug these things in together, once I get into that formula, it's incredible, how quickly these things materialize. I was just talking to my team about it the other day, and they're like, wait a minute, you made your list of like the things you wanted to manifest in August, and you literally like half of those things you just like banged out super easily. There were things that had been there for a while, but I hadn't committed them to the page.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that right, because that's how it works. And I just like laughed at myself. I was like, remember, that's how it works. So yeah, so that's my high level quick version of it. But this has been such important work to me that I wrote a book about it. So I wrote Master Your Money Mind, and put it up on Amazon, and I wrote it, and it's helped other people, but I really wrote it for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you consider baby Alex your biggest manifestation?
Um, my mentor will say that. I struggle a little bit with just like not wanting to objectify my child,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess if I
Or like
if I
put him in a hierarchy when you've got another
yeah,
child
right, it's
involved
like,
also.
and I also, this is actually something, wow, okay. So recently someone was asking me about getting pregnant, and how they were like, it was really easy for us to manifest this baby to get pregnant. And I paused in it because it kind of felt weird. It felt kind of like, I don't know how I want to counsel that, like, I don't know. So what I said was, I just think that the miracles, and I guess everything can be a miracle, but I think when it comes to other souls specifically, like there's a soul contract that's in flow. And I think it's about divine timing. And I also think like there's no way I could have messed it up.
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel also, like what I advised my friend when I said to her, was just like, when it comes to these kinds of miracles, I'm not like trying to market that. Like it just is, there's an isness to it, and it's miraculous and it's incredible. But like there's reverence, there's like this incredible honor to it that is like, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like I was being it. And I made the decision, in March of 2022, really like end of February, that I was just going to believe in our baby. I just decided to like full body go there and believe without any fear or worry, no matter what, and just to keep saying yes. And we adopted our son in March of 2022, and it was pretty fast, that timing of how that unfolded. But again, like that's a God thing to me, not an ego like me thing.
Yeah.
So, but I love that question, because I've really had to think about that, in terms of like, how do I want to speak to that? Because you could say it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's just so profound, and even with our daughter, we conceived Ani, I was 31, and our first attempt at IUI, we conceived, and I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, yeah, I decided we were having a baby, and then we went in and had the procedure, and I just thought, like, I didn't have the story of infertility yet. So I just thought it was like how it worked. And so it was like, oh yeah. And then we just had our baby, and we did, but then we tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. And we didn't have a second child. And what I really think is, I was just talking about this with somebody earlier today. I think all of it was leading to the ultimate outcome. Of course it was, but I couldn't have known it, right? Like I couldn't have known during those failed IVF cycles and the pain and the healing and the just deep grief of being complete with my fertility at 39, that it was all leading me to Alex and to my motherhood journey, moving in that direction. So the big thing is like, whatever it is, you just have to stay with it, and you have to believe in it, with every cell in your body. And I just, I always say, if the dream is in you, it's for you. I honestly sat in 2021 in the question of that, like, do I think that's actually true?
Mm,
And I
yeah.
reckoned with it, deeply. And blessedly, I believe it even more now.
Yes, 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 yes. I love the nuance of this conversation. And I think for me, perhaps the terminology that would feel more accurate is co-creation rather than
Mm-hmm.
manifestation.
Yeah, I like
And it
that.
reminds me of what Abraham Hicks talks about, which is appreciation is the frequency that's closest to source frequency, but not just any appreciation. It's actually appreciation of self
Yes.
and our part of the co-creation with source.
Love it. Yes. 100%.
And it's like, that feels so beautiful. Like appreciating you and the ways
Mm-hmm.
that you showed up for this co-creation, and
Yeah,
appreciating Alex and the way that he showed up for the co-creation, and his birth mama and the way that she
totally.
showed up for the
Yes.
co-creation,
Yes.
and just every little piece of it in deep, deep reverence.
Yeah, it's so good. I just see like this sort of like prismatic form of like all this light coming together. It's just so beautiful. And that really is how it went,
Yeah.
and there's just so many, next pages in the book that just kept turning. And it was like, just from like the birth name, like she named him the name that was our baby boy name, it's
That's
just
right.
like, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't
Oh
have
my God.
designed that
And
if
of
I tried.
course.
Of
Yeah.
course. Exactly. Exactly.
I know. I just love it so much. And it's been, so fun to just celebrate you along the journey and just be cheering your family on as well.
Thank you.
So you recently celebrated your birthday, and I saw that you kind of wrote a post about it. And one of your intentions that you said for this next year was to really be kind to yourself
Mm,
always.
yeah.
And I know that you're a Virgo, and we just a few weeks ago, had the new moon in Virgo, and that like often the shadow side of that astrology is like, yes, you have your shit together, and also you can be really hard on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah. So I'm very curious, like when you set an intention like that, what does it look like to put that into practice?
Such a great question. And I was very conscious of it when I wrote that on the page in the email. I was like, oh yeah, you're owning this. But I will say I've been doing it for a while. So it felt really good to put it on the page to say, like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna really sign, seal, deliver this. Um, I think truly the arrival of Alex has been the most humbling moment, right? Because it's like all the fear and all the worry and all the pain. And I will say that the culmination of all of that, it was really like a crescendo in 2021. It was one of the hardest years of my life. And I was really down. Like I was really sad. I was in grief in a profound way with just again like a layer cake of things happening. I mean, the pandemic and then my dad's Parkinson's diagnosis and watching those symptoms continue to progress, my fertility being complete without any preparation or knowledge that that was going to happen, almost like just being like knocked over by it. The loss of the pregnancy when we did conceive, right? It was just this like, and and I was just contracting my way through it, like truly like birthing the next version of myself. But contractions are very painful. And
Yeah.
so I think
Especially when
that,
you don't know what you're birthing. Like it's hard enough when you're
yeah,
birthing a baby and you're like, okay, this is horrible, and I get to meet my baby on the other side of
right.
it.
Yes. But I'm
You
like,
were like,
what,
this is
what's going
just
to
painful,
happen?
and who knows what's on the other side.
Yeah. I'm like, am I going to lose my whole business? Like, is everything just going to fall apart? I had to let myself go to the full surrender of every single possibility. Like, are we not going to have another child? And I really went into the valley, with myself, with all of these questions and with no answers and just deep pain and grief and sorrow. And I had to walk with it and still like be a coach and still show up. And, and frankly, it was my salvation in many ways because I could just put my stuff aside and then show up for these women that I adore and that I believe in and that I'm with. And like their questions were medicine for me to do my
Yeah.
own work, so it was such a blessing to have this profession, to have this career, to have this community to walk with throughout the year. And, in the business, it was one of our lower years in the last few years, but it was still remarkable. It was still remarkable income that certainly more than supported my family and our goals and all the things we needed to do. So like that again is also still humbling to look at that and be like,
Yeah.
we're still making over $500,000 in a year when I'm like on my knees, you know, and that is, I have so much gratitude for that. I have just like,
Yes.
wow, you know, like that is beyond words. And every one of those dollars is the promise of somebody's dream. That is like the exchange of somebody investing in their dream. Like that's really what my business is. And so
Yeah.
I have just, you know, reverence for that. But yeah, what I really got to, because it was almost like the culmination of that. Like I even though most of the time I was kind to myself, compassionate with myself, there was still that hypercriticism that was available. There was still those standards that I set for myself that were, you know, it sucked all the air out of the room at times. There were those stories I had to meet, and I had to allow them to like really, I had to walk through the whole story and look at like, well, why do you have to make a certain amount of money, and why do you have the goals that you have, and can you forgive yourself for not being able to show up for this thing because you just can't, you know, like
Yeah.
what if what you're doing was enough and you don't have to push beyond that? You know, it's just like so many amazing questions. I'm such a question person. I mean, that's how I coach, as you know. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll just keep asking you questions because I don't have your answers. You do. And
Yeah.
my job is just to create the mirror reflection of that and to help you walk to your answers and to your discoveries. And so I got to this place, Em, of just being like, I'm always doing my best.
Mm.
Like I really am. And I just like have this compassion for her, you know, in this like really warm, loving way. I'm like, wow, you know, like, wow, I could just cry, you know, like,
Yes.
wow, like you have like, you've come so far. And while I say that, I feel like I'm speaking to every woman. Like, I just want to hold your face and be like, you have come so far. Like, look what you've accomplished. Like, look what you've survived through. And still like, you got a smile on your face while you're making the pancakes, you know, when you're like on your knees and you don't know how you're going to like do it, but
Yeah.
somehow you find a way, and it's because of your heart. It's because of your faith. And, you know, like I'm on my own team. I need me.
Yeah.
I've really had to do a lot of healing work with my body. My body has been a place where she's been like the whipping girl for most of
Mm.
my life. I'm so good at disassociating from pain, from sensation, yes, from emotion, though this work has helped me really spend a lot of time in what I'm feeling and working on that. But like
Yeah.
I was a Division 1 athlete, so I could be in enormous amounts of pain and literally not even know it. I had an eating disorder. I could not even eat for like half a day and not even understand or feel hunger pain.
Mm.
Like that part of me has been very interesting to explore, the disassociation and what that's actually about and what I'm avoiding and how that connects back to the abuse that I survived as a child and what that's really about. So yeah, um compassion at every stage, spending time in inner child, inner adolescent, inner 20-year-old, 30-year-old, like looking along the timeline at each one of us and just seeing like she was always doing the best she could, and I'm so damn
Yeah.
grateful for her.
Yes. Uh, the inner child work always brings me to tears
I know, me
too.
too.
It's like, oh my God, I love her so much.
I know.
And I'm still aware of like, I'm working with a therapist right now, and it's like, it's also like the work that I hate and avoid and feels so hard.
So hard. I
And
know.
it's like, I'm recognizing like how much of her feels like yuck to me because she's not well packaged up and she has big feelings and
Yeah.
they just want airtime. And it's like, I'm like the mom that's like setting a 5-minute timer and being like, okay,
I
you
know.
get this much time. And then we got to saddle up, girlfriend. We got to get back to it.
Right.
And
Right. Yep. And we gotta,
and I don't want to be that mom. I want to be the mom that's like, you take as long as you need, baby, because I'm here for you.
exactly. And that's it right there. And again, it's discernment to get to that place. And we can ask ourselves when we're in the former, why am I being so intolerant of myself right now? Like, what's that really about?
Yeah.
And that's a question I'm asking on the regular when I can feel myself rationing, or if I go to a scarcity thought, it's like, wait, what, hold up. And so I've given myself a lot of space for those invitations to pause and really look in a very intentional way, and to know that there's nothing she can say that is going to make me abandon her, that's going to make me turn my back on her, that's going to make me flee. And I think I really had to do a lot of work with my adolescent because she went through an enormous amount of pain. And she had nobody emotionally available for her. And it's like, if my mother heard me say that, she would be like, well, she would say, I guess I'm a terrible mother. That's a whole nother thing. But she would have a hard time hearing that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And we've had the conversation. But the reality was her world was falling apart. And she didn't have the bandwidth, right, back then to be able to tend to her 13, 14, 15-year-old daughter who was just completely, traumatized and trying to figure her own stuff out and was just like going deeper, deeper, deeper into herself. But fortunately, I had soccer as my outlet. It really was, I was talking to my coach about this recently. It was my therapist. It really saved me in many ways. It gave me something to really know myself through. And it's interesting, as a 40-year-old, I still play. And it's joyful for me. But now that I have that identification, it's almost like I don't need it as much because I realize what its role was. And now I can just give myself that medicine like in any moment. And I don't need the game to be that for me anymore. And that's been a really interesting transformation.
Yeah. Those identity shifts are wild. Where it's like, oh, turns out I may be more complete with this than I ever thought. Wait, what?
Right. Exactly. Like with my fertility now, I am, whenever I think about getting pregnant, this body, I'm just like, nope, 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 like, nope, 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 nope. It's just like my body has a voice now.
Yeah.
I listen to her now. She says, no, thank you. And I respect her response. And I love her for exactly where she is and what she gives to me constantly.
Yes. And like so beautiful that you're able to do that. And also it's like maybe she was saying that a lot of the time during
She
the
definitely
journey.
was.
Yeah.
She definitely was.
She was like, are we sure? Are we sure? Because I'm not feeling very sure.
I mean, I took IVF like I was a Division I athlete and I went at it like that. And it was like, and I knew, but after we lost the pregnancy in the second round, when they said like we could do another round, I really listened to my body. And it was like this voice came up and it was like almost like cackling, like laughing, like, are you effing kidding me? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard, that you would ask me to endure this again. And I was like, whoa, that was like such a strong voice. And I was like, okay. And I felt like my body said to me in January of 2021, like, we'll give it a go so you can get this lesson.
Yeah.
But no guarantees here. We're going to do the best we can. And it did. And so I feel like even that was like that experience with my body. It sounds so weird, like it's like two different entities, but it really is, I've lived like that, and now I'm in a much deeper sense of integration with this body, and I feel more energized. I feel healthier. I feel happier. I just feel so different in this body of mine, and I just accept her. It's like, I love how you are. I love your curves. I love that you tell me when you don't like something. I love when you give me that feedback, like, okay, I'm going to listen. I'm going to slow down. I'm not going to tell you to be quiet anymore, because you've always been, first of all, you made my whole life possible, part one, and B, you've always been telling me, and I'm sorry that I didn't understand, but I do now. And I'm thank you for your messages, and you're never giving up on me.
Totally. It reminds me so much. My friend, Kimberly Rose Pendleton, who's an intimacy coach, and she wrote something recently about how, like, as women and as a society, like, we focus so much on these external measures of safety and like things that you can do as a woman to be safe, like, dress a certain way or don't go out alone, and like all of this stuff that's like trying to control the environment. And it's like, the thing that we weren't taught is like our internal guidance system, and like our body is talking to us all the time, and she knows whether we're safe or not. She knows whether it's a situation that we should get ourselves into. Like, she freaking knows. And the biggest disservice is that we're not taught how to listen to her.
No, we're taught to turn and tune her out. And to disassociate.
It's so inconvenient. It's like, no, we can just push through.
Right. It's like even when we get our periods, right? Like all of the marketing messaging that you see out there is like, what an inconvenience. This is so annoying. Like, let's keep it discreet. And it's just like, excuse me? this is a natural process that is actually super sacred. And it's always been here to invite us into slowing down into our cycle and connecting to the wisdom within us. And that has not been part of the curriculum at all. But that's what my daughter's going to learn. And that's how I talk about my period now, even though it's not comfortable always in the first couple of days. But it's like, there are ways to support myself, and it doesn't include hitting the gas and trying to go faster, which is what, we were taught to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned that, as part of your birthday intentions too, like really embracing winter and like the actual winter, but more so the symbolic winter, which is, the part that's not as comfortable. It's like where it looks like everything's dying and all of the joy in life is getting sucked out of the world.
Yes. And it's I know. Well, I'm like, it's so interesting, right? That we can think about, like everybody here in New England, we make jokes about winter. And, and I will say, like, I'm looking out at these leaves and I'm just like, they're going to be gone. But the reality is that winter is a cyclical and vital part of the whole thing. Just like we have to have rest in our life and our bodies and all these things. And so it's like, I really want to understand the wisdom of winter. And also look at it as an invitation to explore. And this is something I've been talking about a lot with clients lately, where scarcity comes up as a response to a winter and how we can peel that idea out, because it's actually a very fruitful time that is a necessary part of the 4 seasons. And these leaves wouldn't exist if it were not for winter.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like the cyclicality in our body.
That's right.
Same for me. Like, it's not the most comfortable time of the month, and not even because of like cramps or whatever. Like, my body is really gracious to me in that respect, but more just because of like the invitation to rest and slow down. And it's like, I'm like the harvest girl. I want to be like out there, like picking all the fruit and being like, oh my God, we filled 80 bushels. Like, I wonder if we can fill 100.
Yes, you're right. And we all have it our own way, we all have our own way of doing that. But I think that's an inroad for anybody listening to this to explore, like, what is your natural response when you know that it's coming, that it, like, how do you feel about that part of yourself? Because when you turn your back on it, it's like, that's still part of me. And if I can't be kind and compassionate and welcoming to that aspect of myself, that's an opportunity, right? That's an opportunity for growth. That's an opportunity for more compassion. And I think compassion, like that button to me, that's the answer. That's the solve of the soul. Compassion and love, like being compassionate with self, being compassionate with others. Anytime my daughter is having a hard time with something, she's getting all upset, it's like, coming back at her with force never solves the problem, but saying to her, like, what do you need right now? And that every single time she says, I need a hug.
Aww.
And it's like, right, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to have your period. It's okay to feel like you're not running 100 miles per hour. It's okay to have a month where you don't make as much as you did the month before.
Yes.
It's okay to slow down and to take it. So perfect example, walking my talk. I had a master class that I was going to do today. It's called Magnetic. So excited about it. And just the way things bounced for the week, Ben was doing his race, and I realized if I do it at that time, he will have to rush to come home. And I don't want to take away from the experience that he's having in this transformation. And also, like, I just feel like there's actually more. And then I got this amazing tagline that came through, and there's more that I meant to teach on this. And I'm not as prepared as I want to be on this day. So I'm just going to move it. And I just moved it to next Wednesday. And now it's like, like I just feel so supported, and I'm supporting myself. Like, that's a compassionate choice. There's no scarcity in that. It's making the decision to be in full support of the transmission of what I meant to share and to teach. And it's so important to me that I want to get that. I'm not going to say right. I want to get that in alignment with the truth of why I conceived this thing in the first place, why I'm bringing this thing forward in the first place. So I'm excited about that. It's going to be so much fun. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to teach. I love teaching so much.
Oh, you're an incredible teacher. So I think this is a perfect moment for, you to share all the places that people can connect with you and the different ways they can connect with you, right? Like you're an author, you're a poet, you're a speaker, you're a teacher, you have an incredible podcast. So
Thank you.
what are some of the ways that you would love for people to connect?
Yeah, so I'm over at amberlilyestrom.com, and I know for your people, like they are feelers, so they just go get the vibe, go feel into it, go check it out, go see what's going on over there. It's like a lifetime worth of blogs, probably I think 400 podcast episodes at this point. I've been doing this podcast since 2016. It's called the Amber Lilyestrom Show. Yeah. So all of that stuff you can go learn and plug in. I have some master classes over there as well that you can sign up for. You can purchase, just, easy breezy. And I'm on Instagram. I love Instagram so much. It's a place where I've been really cultivating a body of work over the last however many years. I love connecting in stories. I love connecting in DMs. I just love that platform so much. And then, yeah, I've written a couple books. Master Your Money Mind, as I mentioned earlier, Paddle Home, which is my poetry book. And then I also co-wrote a book with my friend Adria Peters called Quantum Wealth, and called Factoring in Abundance. So you can get any of those books on Amazon. And, it's like, just choose your own adventure, guys. Whatever you feel, I think is amazing. And I hope that there was some little nugget of something today that felt abundant and helpful to you on your journey.
Yes. Amber, you are such a gift to me. I love you so much.
I love you
too. Thank you
I'm
for
so
being
proud
on
of
the
you.
show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Don't you just love Amber? All right, here are my key takeaways. Number 1, mentorship is a gift that keeps giving far beyond the confines of the container that you invested in. Number 2, know your core values and honor them. Number 3, get on the wave of the thing you want rather than just focusing on the money. Number 4, we can use discernment without judgment to put ourselves into the right spaces. Number 5, the inner child healing is such an important part of our ongoing healing and up-leveling. Number 6, honor and give reverence to cyclicality. Our menstrual cycles and the cycles of nature, including winter, are here to serve us. And number 7, appreciation is the frequency closest to love, especially appreciation of self and our role in the co-creation. Thank you so much for listening. You being here and tuning into the show is such a gift to me and to the guests that are on this show. So I very much appreciate it. All of the letters that you guys send every time you slide into my DMs and tell me what this show means to you, it is just so life-giving. I also want to invite you to subscribe to the show and to leave a review. It's absolutely free and it helps us so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. Before you go, I have something fun to share. Now, when you leave a review of the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, take a quick screenshot and send it to hi@emilywilcox.com. You'll be entered into a drawing to win a free one-on-one Voxer coaching day with me, and you help the show reach more new listeners. Such a win-win. I also invite you to follow me on Instagram at mmakesmoney and to jump into my free Telegram community, The Money Club, which is linked in the show notes. Until next time, I'm sending you all the magic money vibes.